I ain't got nothing yet.
Yeah, so here, as you can see, in this office building, there is a sea full of computers. And as you also know, we had to write emails for every single computer that
And more
existed
than
in
one.
the game. And one of the big challenges we had in doing that was that we never quite knew ahead of time how many computers there would be. There was the level design was coming to us and saying, you know, we need to know how many emails, how many computers you want, and we were saying to level design, well, we need to know how many computers you intend to put in there, and no one would actually make a decision. And we were doing it so late in the process as well that when we actually sat down there to write them, we weren't really sure at that point how many computers there would be. So it was pretty interesting until we finally got our communication straight and were able to say, okay, look, can you give me a few more computers, or could you take away a few computers, because we just don't quite have it down. So that was a really big challenge, and we learned an awful lot through the process, so we got it right with the DLC, The Missing Link.
Speaking of computers as well, something that we could add, because again, it's something that people sometimes don't think about, how something simple or something that looks simple is actually very complicated. Is that, you know, in the game we have the interactive computers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ones that you're talking about now. We have the security hubs, the blue ones that are also interactive. And there's the how do you say, the props computers, the ones that are just for
filling the world.
just filling the world, like the ones that you cannot use. And it actually, these things generate very complex problems, because especially with someone like Jeff as a game director, where he wants everything to be very clear and systemic, you have to make sure that the visual language is very, very clear between the ones that you can use, the ones that you cannot use, and what their purposes are. And that created a bit of a few headaches and everything to get it done right.
But you guys pull it off.
Yes, we did.
Access granted. Access granted. Access granted. Access granted. Access granted.
So we are about to enter the first social boss fight with Zeke Sanders. And actually, the story here is that early on, we decided that, for some reasons that I can't remember very well, but we decided that you wouldn't be able to use the social augmentation against this guy. And that as we were fleshing out the upgrade system, we were mapping out not mapping out, but establishing the pacing at which rhythm you would. So we are about to enter. So we are about to enter the first social boss fight with Zeke Sanders, and actually, the story here is that early on we decided that, for some reasons that I can't remember very well, but we decided that you wouldn't be able to use the social augmentation against this guy, and that as we were fleshing out the upgrade system, we were mapping out not mapping out, but establishing the pacing at which rhythm you would get the praxis kits or the praxis points. And that's why at the beginning of the game, I'm not fully happy with how many praxis kits that you get as you move forward.
Well, if I remember correctly, this was the third social boss fight that we wrote, and at the time that we wrote it, we didn't even have the concept of praxis kits. You had to go to the limb clinic to get operated on, and so when we did we knew that you wouldn't get augmented before that, and you'd have no chance to have the social aug. So I think that's why we decided not to have it initially in this conversation, because we knew you wouldn't have had a chance to get it yet. And later we came in with the idea of the praxis kits, and at that point it became this issue of, oh wait, we have to make sure we don't give you two because you might have it and we don't support it.
And what happened is that, like I was just saying, what happened is that after that, at the beginning of the game, the pacing to get augmentations is too slow, and it's something that we're aware of and we're not happy with it, but because of those decisions and with what you explained, we were forced to keep it this way. So here, one of the interesting cutscenes where actually I remember us debating about the fact that everybody in this world were thin. There was no fat people and everything. And since with our skeleton and etc. for all the NPCs in the world, we knew that we couldn't address that thing, and we said, well, at least there might be an opportunity to put some, in some instances, like in cutscenes, to cover the fact that it's not everybody in the world that is thin, right?
Yeah, and we really wanted Josie to be
one of
the manager of this, to be slightly heavier than everyone else in the game.
And it was this argument about it would be tough to animate and stuff like that, that it's not going to look good. And
that was nonsense.
Yeah, but it was a tough one. But finally we managed to make her slightly more heavy than other characters.
Yeah, and I remember that there were certain people on the team who really were against it, and they were just saying it'll look weird visually, and having a really thin terrorist with this heavy woman just won't work, and I never quite understood the heart of those things. But in the end, it works out really well. And it makes for a really good hostage situation, which is definitely improved.
Yeah, for me, I was loving this. This was one of my favorite scenes because I said, from sound point, there was so much to play with because you got the riot, the terrorist attack that's sort of happening outside, but you got the riot police coming in to handle it. You got cops coming in. You've got a hostage situation. So I mean, the tension level's on 10, which is great. The one thing that was funny when the scene first came to me is we had almost nothing of Josie crying and whimpering, and I thought for a situation like this, the hostage should definitely be like sobbing and whimpering through the whole thing. So we started by adding that, which brought a lot of life to her character during the scene. Like even when there's nothing going on, you can hear her kind of whimpering and sobbing. And I remember, I think we worked a week just getting the timing for the sound. There's a point where a helicopter beam comes right through the room, and I wanted the sound of the helicopter to come with it, to come really close, so it sounded like, they're just, patrolling around and waiting for this guy. that took like almost a week. And again, like JF always says, it's funny how what seems to be the simplest thing can cause so much headaches and be so complicated. Like you're like, we're just syncing a damn light with a sound, but it took forever. But once all the elements came in, this was one of my favorite scenes in the game because I love the actor who played Zeke. I thought he was so good. And his performance, along with Jensen's performance, all the sound, the outside stimuli, her sobbing, it just brought the whole thing together.
Holding a civilian doesn't get you respect. It barely gets you noticed. The hostage is my only priority, and that goes double for the cops out there. Trust me, nobody gives a damn about some coward who hides behind a skirt.
Do you want me to shoot her? You know what? I'm done talking here. The sorry son of a bitch who liked to my brother messed with the wrong family. Now I'm gonna track down everybody and anybody who helped them and laugh while I rip their fucking heads off. And there ain't nothing you or anybody else in this world can do to stop me.
Is your whole family this stupid? The workers being here tonight was part of the hacker's plan. He was counting on you using a hostage, so you get yourself killed and tie up a loose end. You're stumbling right into another of his traps.
No, I'm not. God! I almost fell for it again. No way, man. He's not suckering me twice in one night. Get lost, Chief, before you get me killed. I did what you wanted, so let me go. I got Blade here too, I see.
I've got as much interest in finding out who's really behind this as you do, Cabron.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll owe you one. But I promise you this, someone's gonna pay.
Are you still there? Adam! Adam, what's happening? What's your situation? Adam!
Sanders is gone, boss. But I'm pretty sure he's just a dupe. Somebody else set this up.
Damn it. Okay, I want you back here now. The admin building has a rooftop terrace. Meet Farida on it.
Copy. Jensen out.
Access granted.
Are you all right?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Just a little shaken up, but what about the other hostages? My husband was with them in one of the assembly labs, and I overheard talk about a bomb.
Don't worry, they're safe.
Oh, thank God. When those men surprised us. Mr. Jensen, they should not have been able to get in. With the typhoon being moved in and all, I double-checked the protocols myself.
Yeah, I expect Pritchard's doing the same thing right now. Stay here. DPD will want to question you. But you and your husband should be reunited soon.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. You're a hero.
Nice job securing the plant. I would have thought a security guard could handle. Sorry, Mr. Thornton. The target is...
My wife, is she all right?
She's fine. A little shaken up, though. Swap will need to debrief her, but you'll see her soon.
I don't know what to say. I think I've given up on her. You're a true hero, man. I'll find some way to repay this, I swear.
There's no need for that. I was just doing my job.
Don't be modest. I didn't recognize you before, but I know who you are, Mr. Jensen. And I know you weren't supposed to be back at work yet. Thank God you are. I'll be in touch. Count on it.
You made a lot of people happy tonight, Jensen. And not just the men in suits.
It's what they pay me for.
No. They pay you to put corporate interests ahead of people. You found a way to satisfy everyone. Guess Dr. Reed was telling the truth about you.
Megan, what are you talking about, Malik?
Before you were hired, she said the papers were lying about Mexican Town. That you weren't fired from the force. You quit when you realized Protect and Serve had become Protect and Serve the corporate interest. Nice to see she was right. You ready to go?
Yeah, get me out of here, Malik.
Your wish is my command. Climb in.
So now we're returning to Seraph HQ, and now we have a conversation with Farida where she asks you how you feel about your augmentation and everything. But it's one thing that when we reached Alpha with the critical path and everything playable, we kind of realized that there were not many interaction possibilities with some of the main characters, and therefore the personal touch, the emotional touch was kind of missing.
Well, and I think it was also like up until that point we kind of approached the writing of the dialogues. We were kind of approaching this from a cutscene mentality. We had a lot of cutscenes that would convey the main story. We had dialogues that would react to things that the player had done. So we would have these conversations with Seraph, for instance, where he would say, you know, why did you kill them all? Why did you not, etc., etc. But we hadn't actually looked at it from the standpoint of allowing the player to decide what he wanted Adam to say, unless it was, you know, do you want this weapon or that weapon? So when we reached the alpha phase, we started to realize, wait a minute, we need to bring more of that in. So we ended up doing a major overhaul of a lot of the scenes, and it enabled us to get this scene like with Farida, where suddenly she becomes a much more important character, and she's also bringing in a lot of the questions that we wanted to raise about augmentations. And how do you feel, to pull that player experience. So we were able to kind of succeed in many levels in allowing the player to choose how he wanted to be Adam and to get him to reflect more on his own experience with Adam. And I think this particular scene, it ended up resonating with a lot of different players for it as well.
Why they attacked, what they were really after.
Isn't it obvious? They didn't want us going to Washington.
No, that was just timing. Hearings can be rescheduled. Somebody else can present Megan's findings.
I don't think so, Jensen. They took out her whole team. Declan Faraday, Vasily Savchenko, Mia Colvin, even Eric Koss. The labs their bodies were found in.
We're burned to a crisp. I know.
The only reason you weren't caught in the fire was because that retaining wall came down. Saved your life, believe it or not.
So the whole attack was just to destroy Megan's research.
Sure looks that way. Mr. Seraph is hoping to reconstruct it, but it may take months, if he can keep us solvent that long.
I'm gonna find him, Malik. One way or another.
I believe you. And just so you know, when you do, I've got your back.
I appreciate that, Malik, but right now...
You've got to get the Typhoon into the tech lab, right. See you later, then. Oh, and Jensen, the boss wants a face-to-face debrief in his office once it's secure.
Roger that. Good night, Malik.
Access granted.
So by now, depending on how much time you spend in the Serif offices, David Serif contact you a couple of times to tell you to go to the manufacturing plant.
Adam!
Yeah, exactly. and that thing, he was in the game for a while, like with the dialogue, depending on how much time you were spending there or not. It was popping several times with different kind of variation in the conversation. Things are going to go much worse and everything. And I was reviewing the build in November 1992, in November 2010, and we were almost beta and everything. And I realized, oh my God, like, it's just smoke and mirror, and we don't carry it through. Like, there's no real consequences.
Exactly.
And it's a game about that. And I was, oh my God.
I think that's one of the best things in the game, really.
Yeah, we're missing the point.
Yeah.
And the next morning, I come back in the office, and I go to David and Fussy, our producer, and say, man, we did a huge mistake, and now we're going in our first instance with the journalists, and we're totally fucked. Basically, we need to have a real consequence to that thing, and said we need to re-record lines with.
And we basically need to kill the hostages.
We
if
need
you don't
to kill
get
the
there
hostages,
in time.
exactly. We need to re-record lines, new lines for police officers, for David Sarifs, for Adam Jensen, for all those beautiful people. And he approved it, and I was so happy because, like, and then it was the quest for.
Yeah, and what was crazy about it was, first of all, we were so close to, like, almost having to ship the game that we'd released a lot of our actors. We'd already done all the recording, and Serif himself, so we had to go through and we had to kind of indicate which actors would have to be brought back, how many lines they'd have, and then we had to find Steve Schellen.
Yeah, we found him somewhere on the... somewhere on a beach in Morocco doing something.
He was on vacation.
Someone.
He was on vacation.
Yeah, he was.
He'd been
he was
wrapped.
out there. Yeah, well, he was done. And I mean, anybody who knows Steve Schellen, very talented actor, but very much a free spirit.
How long it took you to get to trace him back?
It wasn't that bad actually, because I think he did leave information with his agent saying if anybody needs me. And so it was actually quite surprisingly quick, but then it was just the logistics of like, okay, I got to find a studio in Morocco that this guy can go to, and I have no way of specking out what their facility's like, what's it going to sound like, but somehow, through the magic of technology and that, we had our voice director here, we had Mary here, and we hooked up via Source Connect, which is a software that allows you to link up in real time and listen in the studio session. So we were able to do it that way. And I guess he showed up in Bermuda shorts with coconuts in hand, and he did it, and we got through it.
Yeah, and it was just a few days before the deadline, and Steve came to me, he's like, well, hopefully it's going to work, and the sound, the quality is going to be there, otherwise we might not be able to use it, and we were super stressed. Well, it was a fun ride.
Yeah, and it worked out because that's the first thing everyone comments when they started playing the game was, "Oh my God, I the hostages are dead already.
Yeah.
I didn't know that would happen."
Yeah, it's one of the few games that really tell you something. And
it teaches you early on that there's going to be consequences
and that really encapsulates what a Deus Ex game is all about. It's this thing that you don't even know that is really happening or whatever, depending on what you do. And some people would arrive there and see them dead, and they didn't pay attention to what David was saying, and they wouldn't know why. And that's what it's all about. Really.
And it almost didn't happen. So as you walk around Serif HQ, you'll see on all the doors or near all the offices are the names of the employees. We kind of did this all at once very quickly. One of the level designers said, well, we need to name these people, and we had no idea. So I assigned it to one of the writers, Mark, and he had the great idea that since this is a scientific research and a thing in the Renaissance style. Why don't we make up names? Why don't we take names of scientists and Renaissance thinkers from the past and painters and kind of mix them up? So a lot of the people in here, with the exception of Will Rossellini, are actually these references to ancient to Renaissance thinkers and painters and artists.
So here we're in front of one of Serif's employees, and he's called Will Rossellini. And actually, he was our consultant on augmentation in the game. And what is really cool about this, how it came to be, is that one day we were working and we received an official letter by this guy presenting himself and everything in the field he was working in and everything. And he said that he could be really an asset to us to work with the augmentations and
because
stuff.
he was a huge fan of Deus Ex, and
Exactly.
he really wanted to make sure that the level of scientific knowledge was accurate and into it, to make that fiction feel even more real.
Exactly. So we contacted him, and therefore we started this collaboration, and now he was more into your turf.
And he really helped me a lot, because we would have just been doing research ourselves, but you're never really sure what's right. But having an expert in the field who can actually kind of help guide us and correct things and help with a lot of the technical jargon that we were working with was really good. And then I remember kind of thinking, as we were coming up with Serif's offices and the employees and needing names for people, I was like, we should see if Will wants his name on one of those doors. So I sent him an email and I said, hey, would it be okay if we gave you an office? And he was like, oh my God, that would be so cool.
Because it's a biotech company, so like that's what he does.
Exactly. And then it actually worked out that he was involved in some of the mystery of the theft. And I said, we're actually probably going to accuse you at one point and make you a suspect at one point. Is that okay? And he's like, oh my God, that it would be so amazing. So it worked out really well for us, I think.
He's a very interesting guy. Didn't he used to play baseball or something?
Yeah, he was in the MLB at some point.
MLB?
With Arizona, I think. Can't remember exactly.
What is that? I'm not really familiar with baseball. Is that like the league right before the big league or something?
No, it's the big league.
Major
League. MLB.
MLB, Major League.
Major League. Yeah. Like he was in the real thing.
Like with a ball and a baseball bat.
Yeah.
That's
like Serif has
the
in
thing
his
that like
office?
lasts forever and nothing happens?
No, that's soccer.
Oh, that's...
So here in Adam's office, you can see his computer. You can find emails on it, and as you can find emails all over the company of Serif. But in particular here, we start off a quest for Jensen to investigate these neuropozyne thefts that are going on. And this was actually a mini quest that was kind of proposed by a level designer, the level designer who created this level. And he came to us and said he really wanted to have this really cool thing where you could kind of break into offices and find the codes to other people's offices, and it would be this whole mystery of kind of solving this, wrapping it up to the side quest of who's stealing the neuropozyne. But his real intention was really just to give players a reason to get inside offices and steal things and find good codes for it. So he never really thought through the actual quest itself, and neither did really me or anyone else. And so when we actually sat down to start writing these emails, we just kind of had this thing as I'm going forward and I'm trying to build this whole mystery through this whole quest, and eventually as I'm getting to the end, I'm realizing there's no payoff.
Yeah, there's nothing.
And there's nothing because we can't pay it off, because that's part of the side quest that comes later.
Yeah.
And we were doing it so late in the production process that we just kind of had no chance.
It was a bummer, because a lot of players came to us after that because they were really into that quest and everything, and they were asking us like, how does it end? Like, where's the conclusion? And we're like,
the conclusion is when you steal from your office, it leads nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's the moral.
There's the moral. I steal
Crime doesn't
pixels
pay.
and polygons all
Or
the
it
time.
does.
I don't know what to do with them. I have no idea. I stack them up.
Stealing's bad, okay?
Yeah.
Access granted.
So here in Adam's office, you can see his computer. You can find emails on it, and as you can find emails all over the company of Seraph. But in particular here, we start off a quest for Jensen to investigate these neuropazine thefts that are going on. And this was actually a mini quest that was kind of proposed by a level designer, the level designer who created this level. And he came to us and said he really wanted to have this really cool thing where you could kind of break into offices and find the codes to other people's offices. And it would be this whole mystery of kind of solving this, wrapping it up to the side quest of who's stealing the neuropazine. But his real intention was really just to give players a reason to get inside offices and steal things and find good codes for it. So he never really thought through the actual quest itself, and neither did really me or anyone else. And so when we actually sat down to start writing these emails, we just kind of had this thing as I'm going forward and I'm trying to build this whole mystery through this whole quest, and eventually as I'm getting to the end I'm realizing there's no payoff.
Yeah, there's nothing.
And there's nothing because we can't pay it off because that's part of the side quest that comes later.
Yeah.
And we were doing it so late in the production process that we just kind of had no chance.
It was a bummer because a lot of players came to us after that because they were really into that quest and everything, and they
Which
were
led
asking us
nowhere.
like, how does it end? Like, where's the conclusion? And we're like,
The conclusion is when you steal from your office, it leads nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's the moral.
There's the moral. I steal
Crime doesn't
pixels
pay.
and polygons all
Or
the
it
time.
does.
I don't know what to do with them. I have no idea. I stack them up.
Stealing's bad, okay?
Yeah.
Access granted. Access granted. Access granted. Access granted. Access Access granted.
Sorry, I can't let you in till he's done with his call, and who knows how long that'll be.
He's doing damage control.
Something like that. You know Bill Taggart is giving a speech at the convention center soon, don't you?
The founder of the Humanity Front talking about horrors of augmentation research in Sarah's backyard. Eliza Cassan's been all over that one for months.
And you've been in recovery, not a coma. Well, 10 minutes ago, Taggart went on TV to publicly denounce all the violence that's been committed against us. He's telling the esteemed Miss Cassan that he wants a face-to-face meeting with David to express his most sincere condolences.
Sarah's not considering that, is he?
David's no fool. He knows better than to get roped into a public debate, but he can't simply ignore the man either. Don't worry. I'm sure he'll figure out something.
So as you walk around Seraph HQ, you'll see on all the doors or near all the offices are the names of the employees. We kind of did this all at once very quickly. One of the level designers said, well, we need to name these people, and we had no idea. So I assigned it to one of the writers, Mark, and he had the great idea that since this is a scientific research and a thing in the Renaissance style, why don't we make up names? Why don't we take names of scientists and Renaissance thinkers from the past and painters and kind of mix them up? So a lot of the people in here, with the exception of Will Rossellini, are actually these references to ancient to Renaissance thinkers and painters and artists.
Well, well, if it isn't Attila the Hun, fresh from the killing fields. If this is about the typhoon, I'll get to it in a minute.
Now, Pritchard. I didn't risk my neck to have you lose it in a pile of CPUs and scuzzy adapters.
Well, look at you, using the big words. Don't think just because you hacked through the plant security system so fast that you're an expert on everything computer. There's a reason I can't examine the typhoon yet.
Do tell.
For your information, I am running a diagnostic sweep on our network and router security to find out how Sanders' hacker got a hold of our codes.
I'd have thought the first question to ask is, whose codes were they? Unless you already know.
Stick to kicking down doors and shooting people, Jensen, and stop trying to do my job. I guarantee you we'll get along better that way.
Here we have a good example of show don't tell with this plate on the wall where we make this building feel much more important and bigger than what is actually playable.
And I remember the first version of it when I was playing it, the level artist had slapped up a sign, and it basically just had 3 floors to the whole building. So what I love about this cutscene is the baseball. It was an element in the backstory of Seraph's character, and it became such an important part of so much of the game itself.
And the way that the ball falls at some point and it reveals Adam Jensen in the back, it really shows that Adam Jensen is Sarah's puppet.
Now what's funny is when we did the audition session, there was a monologue sort of scene, actually a dialogue with Mary playing the role of Megan, and Steve Shellen just sold it so much, speaking about augmented pitchers using a baseball. So again, the baseball comes into play, and it really had a big part of him getting the role.
Yeah, how you feeling?
I've had better days.
Well, when we're done here, check him with Dr. Markovic at the Limb Clinic downtown. Get her to get a checkup.
If you insist. Listen, about Sanders?
Yeah, about Sanders. What the hell were you thinking? Letting him slip away like that? I sent you in there to take care of things.
And I did. The Typhoon is safe. Sanders didn't know about it. He didn't even know his hacker was augmented. He's not the mastermind behind this, boss.
So you cut him a break? The man broke into my facility and took hostages, Adam. I thought you were ready for this.
I am. Today's attack was just a shell game being run by somebody else. I intend to find out who and why, so that it never happens to anybody again.
Good, because so do I. That hacker in Sanders' group, you're sure he was augmented?
I pulled his cables out myself.
Yeah, well, the police are saying he's not, and they're refusing to let me see the body, no matter how much money I threaten to pull from their retirement fund.
Maybe someone else is offering more. So what do you want me to do, boss?
We have to get a look at the corpse. You've still got friends on the force. You think one of them will let you into the morgue?
Depends who I run into.
Get over to the station and find a way inside. Because if that hacker was augmented, his neural hub might tell us who he was. Contact me when you've gotten a hold of it.
You got it.
Here we have a good example of show don't tell with this plate on the wall, where we make this building feel much more important and bigger than what is actually playable.
And I remember the first version of it when I was playing it, the level artist had slapped up a sign, and it basically just had 3 floors to the whole building, because that's really all you get to explore.
But when you're outside, it's humongous.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, guys, we got to have more in there. We got to have like more offices and more things to show this. So we ended up submitting a list to him, and some of the things we wanted didn't get in there. Like we wanted a cafeteria named the Swallow's Nest, named after one of the writers who worked with us. And then the whole part about this is all under construction, it ended up helping us to explain why you only go to a few floors, and yet also tie into the story.
Things are just starting to calm down.
Mrs. Reed?
Oh, Adam, I'm sorry you startled me. And please, call me Cassandra. You and Megan were together long enough. I was waiting for you.
Out here? Why not come meet me inside?
I don't know. I guess I'm just not ready. This is where you work, but to me, this is also the place where I lost my daughter.
I know what you mean. It's never been the same for me either. I'm on it.
So this is a big sculpture that's in front of the Serif Industries building. The idea is there's a big analogy to the Icarus myth in the game. I'm not going to get into all the details right now, but the idea is we kind of divided a lot of the motifs from the Icarus myth and gave them to different parts or different parties in the game. And Serif Corporation kind of represents the ideal for transhumanism, if you want. They want to give power to the people. They want to enhance people, not necessarily at the most expensive cost neither. So we felt that we should represent them with the wing, which is the idea of kind of like, expanding ourselves.
And even
whatnot.
in the title of the Serif Industries, we came up with the name Serif because we were looking for an analogy to
Yes.
angels and wings.
Yes.
And so Serif to us was a shortened form of seraphim. So
Absolutely.
it really, really works. And when the sculpture then reflects that whole wing mythology as well.
Their logo is
their
actually
logo.
that wing as well, but it was interesting to have this kind of like art installation built in front of their building that's shaped like a wing.
Access granted.
So something that was really important, again, you're gonna hear this coming back over and over. It's this whole idea of like credibility to a lot of the stuff like Jeff mentions in another one of these beacons. The idea was not to make a sci-fi game. It was about to make an anticipation of the future, and in order to do this properly, a lot of the things need to look just like they look today in a very precise way, and the storefronts for us were something very important. These are the things sometimes that we miss the target in video games. They look like things that almost as if we've never walked in a real street before. We've never been into a store. You can see it's an abstraction almost of what storefronts look like. So that was pretty important. I mean, some of them are better than others, but at
the same time, that shows that the attention of detail that
yeah,
was
it's all
super
part of that.
important for the game, not only in visuals but in all the aspects of the game. But yeah,
no, that's very
a
very
prime
true.
example.
That's very true, and you can see not only can you see the product in those storefronts, and you can see what the brands are, but also the actual kind of design of these storefronts. The kind of like interesting kind of artsy thing that they have is something we work hard really on.
And in one of the things that we were saying many times that we didn't necessarily fully care if people would recognize all those details, but as they would walk the streets, as they would go into the environments, they would absorb it in a natural fashion because that's how the real world is built, and therefore, even though they don't notice it consciously,
their subconscious are gonna pick up on it. It's actually, if something is wrong, most of the time you actually notice it consciously, and if something is right, it's actually more your subconscious that registers it. So it's a lot easier to really affect the player that if you're wrong, than because that they really know it, pick it up right away. So now you need to work pretty hard at that. Yeah.
these protests. These limb people are drug pushers.
Ah, Mr. Jensen. David Seraph told me you'd be dropping by. I've just been reviewing the test results we received on you last week.
Should I start rolling up my sleeves?
Surprisingly, no. I see no trace of glial tissue buildup in any of your charts.
It's been 6 months, Doug. Shouldn't I be on neuropozyne shots by now?
One would think, but these test results show no signs of implant rejection.
You mean I don't have to wait for my augmentations to kick in naturally anymore?
Very well, Mr. Jensen.
The Limb Clinic actually, it's one of the few places where you cannot use your guns like in Seraph Industries, and that was also a big debate in the team because the philosophy of the game it's to let you play the way you want, and it's all about letting you face the consequences to your actions and everything. But for the chaos management in the game came in quite late, and if you really want to support it well,
we tried so many scenarios to support in both the Limb Clinic, the Seraph building as well. Is just try to figure out how do we support chaos, and mostly with revisitation. When you go back to Limb Clinic, when you go back to Seraph, how do we deal with that when Jensen is supposed to be a neutral character, almost an ally character, even more so in the Seraph building. But even in the Limb Clinic, I mean, it's a neutral place where it doesn't make sense to create chaos. I know we wanted to support chaos everywhere, but technically was very, very challenging.
Actually, I remember endless meetings the Limb Clinic, like weeks and weeks.
Yeah, and at first
meetings.
we put Markovic and everyone behind bulletproof glass so that if the player did create chaos, they would go into cowering mode, and we even wrote lines for them. Like you could still get your augmentations even though you just shot and killed everybody in front of them.
They're still behind those lines.
They're still behind the glass.
It would have been possible to support it, but it would have felt kind of off. Or to make it sound right, it would have been almost.
And remember that for a big part of the development, we actually had to go to the Limb Clinic to get augmented. On top of that,
And that makes me think about exactly like with the Praxis kit system. Originally, you didn't have all the augmentations in your body, and you had to go basically getting there to have your legs cut and then be replaced by augmented
you
legs.
Basically had to go under surgery every time you wanted
exactly.
Yeah, we had a whole cutscene, you remember, of the surgery.
Variations of cutscene, they were doing again.
And it was not totally elegant. And on top of that, the other problem that rose was that it was only giving the city hubs for the players to augment themselves. And at some part in the game, you go in Picus, you go there, and for a long time, you're not in a city hub. And we wanted to go with a system that was allowing the players to upgrade whenever they wanted, when they had the right XP points. And this is where the Praxis kits.
And I remember when you brought that up to me with the Praxis kits, I was ready to kill you because we'd already rewritten and re-recorded Markovic behind the glass twice, and now we had to rewrite her entire speech a third time and bring the actress back in yet again to record and make that make sense.
And you didn't kill me because you knew it was the right call, right?
So many people almost got murdered on this game, man. Jesus Christ.
And also, one of the things that you did with Steve and everything was to have the doctors being like all DX team members and stuff. And
that's the if you pay attention to when you're in the Limb Clinic and you'll hear the paging system and the people being paged, Dr. Chetri, Dr. Shipkowski, these are all members of the team.
And what happened to Markovic? She used to be pretty.
No, it's just that she was younger, but the model didn't work super
And yeah,
well,
she was
and-
younger, but it took us so much time to make that
She
game that
aged in the
she
game.
aged.
She aged with us.
If we had
But,
to age,
yeah.
she did too.
And also the visuals of the Limb Clinic. It's also one of the big cyber renaissance places of the game, and you know, it kind of works okay, I guess.
Protesting is not against the law.
Adam, are you finished at the clinic?
For now.
Good. Right now I want to know who that corpse is. Head over to the police station and get his neural hub. And Adam, if you can't talk your way in, consider making a strategic retreat. There's gotta be another entrance on the side of the building.
Access granted.
So here's the weapon merchant inside of the gas station, and the whole gas station was a very old building that we kept from all the way back from the very first vertical slice. And instead of trying to redesign it as we went along in the production of the whole city hub, we actually tried to keep it because we thought it was one of the very cool things visually, and also gameplay wise there was a lot of potentials to do with it. And we always wanted to have a weapon merchant, a black market merchant inside of it. And the thing is, for us, since you work on a game, it's always very, you lose some kind of objectivity about what you think is good about your game. So for me, it was very obvious that there was someone in there. But from the playtest, almost every single playtesters did not see the weapon merchant. So.
But we were debating like, oh, should it be obvious or should it be hidden, and etc. And we went back and forth a couple of times
Definitely.
until we decided, okay, let's make it more.
At some point, we had an icon about those guys and trying to create some kind
That's
of
true.
a Metal Gear Solid-ish type of
Yeah.
group or something like that. And at the end, we said, fuck it.
You got anything you want to buy us? See you soon.
Yeah, so I don't know why, but I really like this character, this side quest character. He always felt really credible to me, the way he speaks and everything, and all the things he's talking about makes the conspiracy feel even bigger than what you're actually playing in the main story. Like, it's kind of hinting at the shadow government and stuff like that, and I think it makes it much deeper than.
And I think a lot of credit for that goes to not just the guys who wrote the dialogue, but the actor. We mentioned him earlier, and the casting of the side quest characters was an interesting part of what we were doing, right, Steve?
Yeah, it was great. We had and we'll even throw some, since we're giving credit out, we'll throw some to our voice director, Simon Peacock, who did a great job. And he often would recommend some of these characters to us when we would give him the character design, and he'd be like, oh, I know this one guy would probably nail it. And more often than not, he was right on. But I agree with what you're saying, Jeff. Like, he's one of my favorite characters, because when I saw the visual of what the character looked like, because it was one of those guys that we casted without knowing what he would look like, the voice, it was one of those rare occasions where the voice and the visual matched perfectly. And when you played it, I think that's part of the reason why it feels so credible, is that the voice looks like it would come from that character.
Hello there. Well, you must be Adam Jensen.
A keen observation.
Mrs. Reed told me you might pay me a visit. And don't take this the wrong way, but you're kind of hard to miss.
I'll try to take that as a compliment. She told me you might have information regarding Megan Reed's case and the attack on Seraph headquarters.
Oh boy, what a mess. Total pissing match. We had the feds on our ass, orders from 3 different departments, and pressure from so many lobbyists. It felt like being the scrawny new kid in a prison shower.
It is a very high-profile case. Mrs. Reed said you thought some procedures were overlooked.
You got that right. I mean, you know how it is. Mrs. Reed told me you used to be a cop. There's always cases where you see the lazy officers taking shortcuts. But this was different.
Different how?
Too much stuff got overlooked. People seemed way too eager to jump to conclusions, and every time I was remotely insistent, I got turned down by ranking officers. People wanted to bury this thing fast. That's never a good sign.
Surely you have something more substantial than this.
Yeah, well, that's where you come in. I got a couple of leads I could never fully investigate. You'll most likely find him in the lobby.
Thanks for the heads up.
It's nothing. And, please, don't bother coming back here with details. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad to help. But the less I know about this case, the better I'll feel.
How did you get assigned to this case?
I didn't push for it, if that's what you mean. To be honest, I didn't want to get involved.
Why not?
I was an honest cop, Jensen. I always tried to conduct myself in accordance with the law, with procedures, and what I believed was right.
That's all I need for now.
You have to help.
Why retire from the force only to become a security guard? I mean, it looks like you still love the work.
I'm thinking about getting my pit bull augmented. Get him some cyber paws and cyber fangs and shit. Throw him in the ring.
Dogmentation?
Yeah, word. We should, what do you call that? Like, register. Patent.
Copyright.
Yeah, copyright. Let's copyright that shit. Documentation. Yo, we gotta be rich, man.
Access granted. Access granted. Access granted.
Why would you book me a trick inside D-Road?
This DRP turf, asshole. Don't try it.
You crazy?
Now we're entering in Delaric Row, one of the part of the Detroit City Hub that started as a zone of exploration that was adding the gangs and everything to add some combat opportunities or stealth opportunities, a little bit more in the City Hub and everything. But the thing is that in our story beats that we already identified, we didn't have much.
This at all.
Yeah.
No, the original plan for Detroit was that you had the objective of going to the limb clinic, go to the police station, and the police station would be the area with the real challenge, and then you would go to your apartment, and then you would go straight to FEMA. But we had this entire section that sprung up from the level designers wanting to put that darn gameplay into there.
And that whole environment was actually from the very first vertical slice. So the whole environment, the whole courtyard with the ruined buildings, is very, very old, and we just patch in more gameplay aspect, more smaller rooms and all that throughout the production. And so VS1, VS2, all the way to Alpha and Beta. So that environment is definitely old, both visually and also technically in the game.
Yeah, and so suddenly we had this area where there's like, okay, well, we were kind of thinking about rival gangs in the city, so we kind of suddenly made it the gang territory. But then it was like, we need an objective to send you in there. And it was like, we don't have one. And that's where the antenna came from, is that we just kind of had
so
to
well placed
come
as
up
well.
with a story reason why why you have to get into gang territory to shut down an antenna.
And players weren't finding the
We
antenna.
had so many problems. Yeah, it was that was on me. I mean, it was basically bad level design to place that antenna not in your line of sight or entice it properly and whatnot. So it was a very bad thing to do. But try to patch a good system. This is where we actually try to optimize our checkpoint system, the objective locator, place it to more like a piece of bread bread system. Yeah, breadcrumb. Thank you. Throughout the game,
So when we're asked if story come first or gameplay come first, well, in this case, gameplay really came first.
This environment, the whole courtyard environment, was the very first one where we basically tested outside of very independent gyms, very safe and static gyms from the programmer side. But this is where the actual in-game environment where we wanted to test, to play out with how the AI respond correctly from the player on the stealth aspect and also the combat aspect. And we had also the police station, but police station was mostly corridors. Here we had a very open type of environment with verticality and whatnot. So it was a very old environment, but it was almost a test gen that we actually produced and left in the game. So
here's the antenna that we need to shut down to end this this part of the quest. The thing is that it looks like a pretty normal antenna at this point, but it used to be very, very high design, I guess. we had designed something that looked nothing like an antenna.
And nobody guessed, oh, that's an antenna?
No, people would just get there and just like start spinning in circles looking for a goddamn antenna, and the whole time they were just right next to it. But I thought it looked nice, but you just have to realize at one point, this design really sucks, and let's just...
Is it form over function or
Yeah,
function over form? I forget.
That was form over function, literally. And then we ended up putting it into function over form, yeah.
But what's cool with also the antenna, once it works and people know that it is an antenna, actually, it's that you can go there before having the actual mission, and you can complete the objective ahead of the time.
Yeah, and we had a lot of fun with that one, just kind of trying to figure out what would happen if you went to it first. And I personally love what happens with Pritchard when you do that, and you're like, Pritchard, what? And he doesn't answer. And it was very funny here on the team because not everybody knew that within our team that we had planned it, that you could do it out of order. And I remember one of the programmers one day sitting down and playing the game and suddenly realized, wait a minute, I'm going to go straight to derelict row. I'm going to shut down that antenna and trick game design and prove to them that they didn't figure it all out. And then they got there and they shut it down and they heard Pritchard's dialogue and they thought, oh my God, they really did figure everything out ahead of time. So we were smart that time.
It's that time.
Access granted.
Jensen, what did you just do?
I shut down some sort of signal antenna in Derelict Row. I figured it might be transmitting something dangerous.
Well, isn't that interesting?
Care to elaborate? Pritchard? Pritchard!
So the entry of Derelict Row, like we had this door, which was kind of the main path, the choke point to get into the gang territory. but it turned out that it was really, really, really hard to draw players' attention in that direction. They were always distracted by other things, and we did tons of things here to try to draw their attention in that direction.
Yeah, and trying to link this whole environment, the whole Daily Crow environment, very gameplay, very combat approach, combat supported, and to stream that environment, which visually is completely different from the rest of the city hub. Then to technically stream it properly, we had to make sure that the door is not always facing forward the street itself, and we have some kind of a S-shape type of corridor, so typical in level design, but it was very difficult because of the placement of the door itself. So.
And after that, like, we were kind of putting some letters that were blinking, like...
Yeah, there's that sign,
Yeah.
but it's not directly on top of that place.
No,
but
it was
it's
too
much
high,
higher, but
yeah.
it's just the way that we ended up lighting it, and it ended up attracting a lot of the players'
Yeah.
attention. Yep.
Hey, Jensen. Long time no see. Don't look.
Jensen. My God, it's been a while. I'm with